Happy Hunger Games.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
It's very important you don't stink today. Hey, I make no guarantees.
Why, hello there, and welcome to our next podcast. The American Workers and Patriots Liberal Party now merged with the National American People's Party, which makes this really the National American People's Party podcast. So that might be the last time you hear me call AWPLP into action. I'm actually going to do what I can to change the search box in Spreaker.com for this podcast to come under NAPP. So beware of that. Hopefully you're just finding this podcast for either Frank or his Facebook group page, National American People's Party. Anyways, looking forward to talking with Frank again on some major issues. Issues of the day, of course, had a lot going on this week with the Trumpster trying to again catch the media's attention, with Bernie showing up on several talk show circuits, and as well the Bill Maher real-time show last Friday. Certainly a very interesting take on Trump's ploy from Bernie on that show we can talk about, as well as other issues at hand, transgender issues, bathroom use being discussed by a lot of people around the water coolers these days, and it's a lot of things, and also an opportunity for me to Frank to begin to hammer out the aspirations of not only this podcast, but the media, social media outlet attempt to make this organization more well known. And that's where you, the audience, comes in. We had 103 of you listen to the last podcast. That's good. That's good. That's a great start. Is it good enough for my liking? No. But as far as could it have been a failure, if it only had like 20 or 30 hits, yes, definitely would have been a failure. 103 is something that we can work with. We can get people involved. I myself got on the NAPP Inner Circle on the Facebook group page and got people to listen, like at least 4 or 5 people to listen to the podcast after it had basically calmed down. A podcast has a spike, and then it curves down to a time period where people stop altogether tuning in. And even after that, I was able to get at least 8 or 9 more hits on the podcast just by talking to people on my Facebook group page. So that was good. To you all, I took the rather ridiculous assumption that you all knew me from my previous podcast, but I only had like 12, 13 people on my previous podcast listening at any given week. So I needed to realize I needed to reintroduce myself. So I'm going to take that opportunity now. My name is...
So, hi, Larry. I'm Robert Hoover, chapter president. Hi, Robert. Katie, have you seen Boone?
No, not Larry. Sorry. Boone's not here either. Okay. Name's Ken Woodward. I am doing this podcast for over a year and a half. I felt the need for a splinter group. A friend of mine on my Facebook wall felt the need to form a splinter group too. And so we formed the splinter group of the Democratic Party called the Patriots Watchtower. And our job was to watch the liberals and make sure they were not beginning to bend to the Wall Street pressure. Foresight indeed. We changed several times, different names, and even the person who I began the podcast with went on a different direction. He's currently a libertarian supporting Gary Johnson and trying to give me his agenda there. Nothing wrong with Gary Johnson, except that he will never get elected president. And I know I've discussed several times about how bad a protest vote is, but equally bad would be voting for someone who has no prayer of winning. So that's where I stand there. This is a brief introduction to me, though, and what I did. And what I did when I was at the peak of my career, I was working in Lake Tahoe, California as a dual rate supervisor at a casino. And those who don't know what dual rate does, you've seen the guys in the jackets, or the nice, suit and tie and walking around. They're called pit bosses at the casinos. That they're basically underpaid accountants who keep track of bankrolls in the blackjack dealers and what other games dealers trays, and do customer service. They take care of the guests. They make sure the guest wants to be tracked, they can be tracked, have a player's card, get free breakfast, maybe a free stay overnight at the hotel, that kind of stuff. But as a dual rate, you do both. Not only are you the pit boss, you are also a dealer. So I dealt blackjack, 3-card poker, and craps briefly. So you got to see both sides of the ledger, basically because, and it's a weird situation in a casino business, working by tips, that there are many occasions actually as a dealer, you made more money than the person actually pit bossing you, supervising, so to speak. That was not the case toward the end of my time in Tahoe. When I first arrived in Tahoe, heard about the good old days constantly, about how it used to be so much better. But I was quite happy and content with the $18, $15, $20 an hour I made, depending on whether dealing or supervising. But toward the end, was quite displeased with the $9 and $10 an hour checks that were. Remember, this is including the $5.25 wage. So yes, the tips dropped dramatically over the course of time. And as the Bush tax cuts on the wealthy, and hoping that it was going to help the people below them, took effect, my casino bid had to close, and I was laid off. And I was brought back here to Midwest Illinois, humbled, and spent 2 years unemployed, drawing a decent unemployment check from the state of Nevada. Nonetheless, because of my experience in what I was making before, made it nearly impossible in Illinois to find a job that would actually pay me the wages I had previously earned. So for 2 years, I was basically in limbo, and the casino business had basically changed, totally did a 180 on how it handled its business, and still does today. No longer do they hire as many full-time people as they did when I was there. Now it's almost all part-time and on call. And I don't know how you make a living in the casino business on call. It's to say the least. I toward the end, when I went back to Tahoe, my last stint there before I got laid off, talked to quite a few guys and gals who dealt on call, and I can tell you that how they existed was just basically on a wing and a prayer. Last possible chance I had before I would lose my unemployment, got a job at a hardware store, and I have worked my way the last 6 years up the ladder of employment gain to almost, I'd say on a good weekend where I say I get extra $2.50 an hour for working on the weekend in addition to my wage. I'm getting close to, but not quite where I was, well, basically 10 years ago. So that's a brief. If you're looking for why am I upset with people, companies that don't pay their employees fair wages, and for presidents whom do not do their job and take care of the working man. I'm your A1 candidate to be against anyone like Donald Trump or anyone who would not stand for the working person, whom I kind of concerned about Hillary, because I haven't seen her say anything. She said a lot, but she hasn't done anything to show me that she's actually on my side. And I'll get into that further down in this podcast here. I did have a brief discussion with my father, who's a very, let's say, left is a understatement. You have you have Donald Trump, who is toward the middle, and Hillary's toward the middle. On the other side of each of them, you have the players like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. On the other side, you had Martin O'Malley. You have Bernie, who's a little much farther left than Hillary, but not all the way left. And then you have my dad, and he's just up the cliff left, down all the way. Okay. A man who actually believes that if Donald Trump, it might be the person he has to vote for, and he's hoping that even after he votes for him,